Fred, just a couple of words from you. It was very much a short race, wasn't it? Yeah, the real non-event, that's a terrible way to win, but I'm just like to take my dad. Had to say an F, unfortunately, but him all the way here, all the kids through, rank, all the sponsors for coming to that this weekend and the sponsors of the event. Well done, guys, and just down the road, look at the last show. You're great customers, you know. Now you're racing 27 feet of motor car. What's it feel like out?
Mate, I feel like I'm out in the ocean in my own battleship, you know? Battle scars and all. No holds barred.
Well done. Congratulations. And Mac, yourself? Well, what have I better to win a different way, but anyway, it's good experience.
Nothing to do with my old age. Keep me alive.
Just a tenth of a second too, John, so it wasn't an easy one compared to the timing that we expected earlier, no, but Maya and the 27 car there was pretty well.
They're a different type of people than yours.
I was in France this year. I went to a motor racing club.
Was there? It was all behind it, it might have happened for all I know.
What are you doing?
Did you guys ever race up against Big Dog?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, many times. Enough said.
Many times.
Just like that.
We've got some other events that will be occurring throughout the year, certainly. We're happy to be out here at the Cormac and McLaren Leyland, Mount 1976, 77. So we have a nice piece of heritage tonight. If you want to be able to wander up and see the picture, they're not only looking great, but they're also in different colours. Now let's just talk about some of those colours from the 70s. Well, on the show here this weekend.
Get a few cobwebs out of it.
Take a quick break, ladies and gents. The Group A Trophy Race Run 1 and done. Group C Trophy Race is about to come your way in the next minute or two, followed by Group S, and that will round us out day 1 here at Sydney Motorsport Park. And day 4 pretty much got this one side up. I think Donna heard well truly on his own. Sit back and relax on the car and cruise control. We're in that second and I don't think just now coming out a real race that's sharp. Very brief to go to the Tasman series, and you mentioned obviously yourself from New Zealand, one of the cars from New Zealand. What was the origination of that series?
Down the day went on, we were leading the race, and started to the radiator, we took the engine, but I think it was one of those things where we drove the wheels on that time all day, Monaro started to play towards the end, and they were lucky enough to be able to won the race. Impact, against when you're on the front row, the green is your right, so now we'll see the cars going up, everything down the wall, into it, one down,
Anyway. And really tell us what we have all about.
That's Alan Grice. You've had some top dices over the years, you two Allens.
Yes, particularly in that neck of sand down up the back straight. Gracie was always a bit reluctant to put his foot on the brake, actually, and a number of times used my Falcon GT as a battering ram. But a terrific driver, a fellow that knows how to use his head. He's not afraid to swallow a little pie in the opening laps there, and watching the Mustang and Peter Brock go to a comfortable lead. He's got his tires settled down, hasn't been in the pits yet, and we could be very well looking at a potential winner here right as we look.
And those famous red gloves, I think he's about the first man to wear those. You see them working pretty hard in the car.
I tried those once and they distracted me so much that I went back to the normal ones.
It doesn't matter to me how much carbon fibre it's got on it, as long as I've got as much carbon fibre as the next bloke, that we've got, you know, an equal chance of winning. And it comes back to the driver to get up on the wheel, get on the gas, and to get it done to win races.
Change for Bob Pearson to go about an hour and a quarter or thereabouts. Take another race win in the 2013 Bicycle Australian Sprint Racing Series for finance and cheers continuing from Queensland for Ed Grice. His family will be absolutely wrapped, and his old man in racing.
That was a BMW. I got punted by the bloke who was saying,
drove this, I'm going to say a race a bit long. You drove a 30 race for a while.
I'm probably more of a driver, a hard competitor that wants to win. Doesn't matter what in. I want to race the wheels of anything like speedway, touring cars. Doesn't matter. If I got a chance to win, that's what it's all about. That's why we go car racing.
For the Hardy 1000 at Mount Panorama, and the crowd has erupted. He's done it.
Races, but I doubt whether there have been many more comprehensive victories than we've had here at Mount Panorama this afternoon in the 1986 James Hardy 1000. The feat performed by Alan Grice and Graham Bailey in the Chickadee Commodore, I think, is almost unparalleled. Leading the start virtually from race start to finish. They put up a magnificent performance, I think you'll agree. It's been a fantastic effort. The car ran faultlessly all day, and I think...
Alan is considered to be a very hard driver and quite vicious with the motor car. That's not true. Alan is very firm and very hard, but he's as smooth as silk. He is really a very, very smooth driver. And I've been with him quite a few times, and I did driver training with Peter Werrick for a lot of years, and I've been in with a lot of very, very good drivers over the years, and I observed that smoothness is one of the most important factors of fast driving. And Gricey had that. He was very, very smooth, but very aggressive. He was like a cat in a trap. If you got under his feet, you'd get swiped. No risk in the whole wide world. He did not know how to take a backward step. And that's very good to a point, but there is also that point where you think, whoops, we might go too far here and lose the race. So he may have lacked that little bit of observation at the time. Maybe the adrenaline and maybe the ego, of course we're all full of ego, otherwise we wouldn't motor race. Maybe those things were a little too intense at times and Gricey would get into trouble. But in the overall picture, he was a very good and very fast motor racer, in my opinion anyway.
Oh yes, our involvement from the early racing cars, you know, the open wheel cars right through to the end of the era with where I stopped racing in Group A cars, but coming together, I mean, we were fairly near to each other as far as location is concerned, and of course some of the things like when I was racing Formula 5000s and up through that era, we were constantly at the same meetings and saw each other, but and remained friends all through that period, you know, family friends virtually, and also the association with the Search for a Champion thing that Alan put together, and we had great times. Certainly had great times, but we pushed off in different directions, really, is what it amounted to, and his direction was good for him and my direction was satisfying for me. Simple.
But there were lots of times when we ran together on the track. I mean, not in the same team, but you know, Camaro days and stuff, we were certainly spent a lot of time racing each other, but he was probably smart enough to know that it wouldn't be a good idea to crash into me, and I was smart enough to know it probably wouldn't be a good idea to crash into him.
No, there were a couple of blokes I'd race wheel to wheel with, you being one of them, Johnny Harvey being another, and you might or might not appreciate it. Alan Moffat was one of the ones that I would drive wheel to wheel with and not have a moment's problem with, because
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Yes, exactly. I knew you wouldn't agree with it. But I was talking to Moffat a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about Longford, and he and I raced some improved production cars down there. I was in an Alpha GTA, and he was in a Lotus Cortina. And he won one race and I won the other race. And the third race I had a head gasket go, but he said, apart from all that, he said, he had a sense of humour, he said, you remember we come down the end of the straight one time? And he said, I outbrake you, and then you outbrake me. And he said, I outbrake you again, and then you outbrake me again. And he said, we both ended up down the escape road. But we didn't hit each other, so, yeah.
I had a similar story, but with a different finish.
Boom.
Approach to the back straight, and he'll come out a little bit earlier than I would have expected, but it's not a very long straight, and here they are under brakes now. Gracie's not having anything to do with it. Could be a touch here, and he's made it. He's got a whoop.
Yes, he said, you want to do that? We'll have a bit of that. That's back the other way. Thanks, pal.
Absolutely almost legend Grace. That's standard Grace procedure. As such, giving no quarter, probably a little bit uncalled for. Tony did get the better of him under brakes there, but he's not going to get out of that mud puddle.
Let's have a look at this.
He's going to bang some door handles here today.
Well, there, Tony's gone in, giving him a tap there.
I could probably, I'll take my words back, Tony's initial bump there got Gracie's hair up, and it was tit for tat, and of course the Commodore came off better.
I was a driver for hire in touring cars, except for the episode where I ran a Starion in Group A, a Mitsubishi Starion, production car racing, and won a couple of titles in production car racing in Mitsubishi Starions. But my heart really wasn't into that sort of, it was a means to an end, let's put it that way. Whereas those other guys, Grice and Brock and Moffat and people like that, put their whole life into the touring car scene.
Yeah. But I was never a mechanic.
Oh.
But I was as good as there was around at telling you what a car was doing. I could set up a car and make the car handle, and I could convey to the mechanics that knew me what the car was doing and when it was doing it, and they were able to translate those comments into mechanical changes that made the overall package better. Always in an effort to get the package better.
It's a pretty critical stop, Mike. They've got actually about a lap lead now, but they can't afford to mess about because both the Commodore and, for that matter, the Nissan are...
It was always cohesive. We always worked together. Les, yes, did build the engines, and Mick Ryan was involved in the tyre section, and I ran the fuel boys, and we had, it depends where we were at. The Chickadee days, we had half of Graham's team and half of Les's team, and then later on when we went to HRT in the 90s, we had mostly Holden race team, and then we came in with the other part from Alan.
Yeah, go on, sorry. Number one, the fuelie's always number one. The wheelie's very slow.
What was nice for Alan, and you got to go back a few years when I had the phone call from Alan Grice in '87 to ask if I'd like to drive at Bathurst. Well, the Rovers had already finished then. '86 they wouldn't let me do it. '87 it was finished, I was able to go. And all I knew that I was going to front up in Sydney, I was going to be met by a guy called Ian Maudsley, and I'm taken home and looked after and taken up to Bathurst. And I was going to drive the Bob Jane car. Now, Gricey, yes, I'd been there with the Jaguar. As far as I was concerned then, would I ever have got the chance to go back to Bathurst to race again? I don't really know. You can never pre-plan anything. Gricey gave me that opportunity. That was '87. '88, through Alan, I got the Nissan Drive in the European Championship, the Group C car at Le Mans and in Japan, and we drove the insurance-sponsored car at Bathurst in '88. That guy had done more than enough to help me. So, two reasons. One, I knew that he was the best partner to have at Bathurst that year, 1990. The other, yeah, I felt I owed him. So, he got the opportunity. what was nice for Alan was that in 91, nobody questioned him. Nobody said you can't have him. Nobody said you don't want him. In 92, he came along with me as well. And it wasn't until 93, when they put me in with Thomas, that they dropped Alan. Now, I couldn't do much after that. I couldn't help him in any way at all. But I felt that it was a debt repaid. The biggest decision that day didn't even come in to my driving ability or whatever. The biggest decision was when I stood in the pits with one more stint to go, with a pulsating shoulder, taking painkillers, thinking, we stand a chance of winning this. I'm not the man to do this. Alan, would you like to stay in the car? That was the biggest thing I've done in probably my racing life, making that decision. Because that was pretty difficult. But the manager's hat said, you've got to do that. The driver's hat said, my God, you're giving away this chance.
It's the best feeling I've had since 1986, I'm going to tell you.
And I come back to could've, would've, should've. You don't know. It's just something you just don't know.
My experiences right throughout the years was that I was always able to adapt into different cars. In the GT era, for instance, I drove a Di Tommaso Pantera, and whilst it wasn't a terrifically competitive car on every circuit, as soon as it rained, away it went. You know, it was just a very good car in the wet, and mainly due to the fact that it didn't have a great deal of power to start with. But chassis wise, it was a wet weather special car. Those experiences I've got in there, the number of cars that I've driven over the years is phenomenal, hundreds of different motor cars, and great experiences right throughout life.
Right now, we're going to take you to Neil Crompton. Adding some spice to this weekend's sports sedan and GT race, an old stager, a man in a new vehicle. Kevin Bartlett, the new Pantera, is a fascinating motor car.
It's a good looking beast, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite a good thing. We've raced it twice, once at Oran Park and the other time at Winton. We're pretty fortunate at Winton and one in the wet. It's not going to rain here, obviously, but yeah, it's quite a good car. Concept's fantastic. Barry Locke's the builder and designer of the car, and it's owned and sponsored by the toy shop mainly, and it's got various sponsors on the car, which obviously people will see as it goes around. The concept's good. There's a long way to go with it as far as the chassis is concerned, and the engine power plant we have in has got a measly 500 horsepower.
A measly 500 horsepower toy.
Yeah, we've got a good engine coming. It's got 640, but I want to get the chassis right first.
It must take you back to the old Formula 5000 days.
Very reminiscent of a Formula 5000, in fact. It feels like a Formula 5000, really, with more aerodynamics, which it has got, which it is. I'm not quite at the rowdy stage as I was with Formula 5000s, of course, and I'll drive it accordingly to, well, depends how we get the chassis right. If it gets better, I'll drive it harder, but that's all.
And plans to continue driving this car later in the year?
Well, that's certainly up to the toy shop. I would say yes. We've got on pretty well. They're very nice people and very devoted to many, many things in motorsport.
It must be very hard to get in and out of a Group A car and then into a car like this.
Well, lately it hasn't been too hard to get out of a Group A car because I haven't been in one. I haven't even done any testing as far as the Mitsubishi is concerned, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, yes, we'll get a few miles under the belt with it in time for the start of the Endurance Championship here and at Oran Park.
What about teething problems with the car? Inevitably, with a purpose-built motor car like this, there's drama. There doesn't seem to have been too many.
Well, there have been a few little niggly problems, but they're behind-the-scenes problems, and we've been able to fix them without them being apparent on the racetrack.
Happy with yesterday's form?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you throw the cat amongst the pigeons in today's race.
Oh, very nice, yes. the white pussycat.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin Bartlett looking good in the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series. Here's Mike to read the grid.
Thank you very much, Neil Crompton. Well, Kevin Bartlett, of course, there in that wild-looking Pantera, ready to come out onto the racetrack. Might be timely now to have a look through the grid, how they'll line up the top 12 today. From pole position is in fact car 5, Kevin Bartlett in the Pantera with a 50.27. Starting out of 2 is number 41, Mike Griffin in the Mazda RX-7. From 3 is car 3, Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche. From 4, car number 77, John Burke in the Celica. From 5, car 50, Peter McLeod in the Mazda RX-7. From 6 is car 14, Keith Carling in a Mazda. From position 7, 104, Gary Scott of Queensland in the Nissan Bluebird. From 8, car 49, Bob Tyndall in the Tirana. From 9, 57, John Vernon in the Escort. From 10, 43, Ian Stones in a Mazda. From 11, 105, Glenn Seaton in the Nissan Pulsar. Rounding off the top 12, number 11, Bill Attard in the Mazda RX-7. Then, of course, Chris Hones, Simon Harricks, who I don't think will be starting due to problems earlier today, Graham Nolan, Mal Rose, Albert Cedars, Michael Caruso, Nick Middenway, Ken Davidson, Wally Kramer, Graham Bailey, Michael Jacobson of Victoria, Ray Butterworth and Steve Bosley. So it's a fairly strong-looking field. 25, probably take out 1 or 2 there. 23 starters. Simon Harricks, I don't think will be starting. There's 23 starters, and of course, it's over 10 laps. The Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series, round 4.
Lap record for this category is 50.9 seconds, held by Brian Thompson in that Mercedes of his. And Kevin Bartlett has qualified under that time. It'll be interesting to see if he can in fact better the lap record in this race. I wouldn't mind betting that he can with a clean start.
I think he probably can. In fact, Gary, the car is, what as Kevin described before, a pretty mean-looking beast, and he wasn't wrong. Brian Thompson, just talking of him, is in Canada this weekend, so won't be competing at this round, which is in fact the final round of the Comalco Wonderlic Sports Sedan Series. There's Mike Griffin in the RX-7 Mazda. So yes, indeed, the lap record under threat, and the circuit now very dry, whereas the first round, or the first heat of this, a preliminary earlier on today, conditions were very slippery and greasy. And in fact, Kevin Bartlett and John Burke in car number 77, the Toyota, had a magnificent battle which had the crowd on their toes earlier on today just to warm things up. And we're looking forward to now what I hope will be a repeat performance of the same kind of action. So KB getting a heart starter here by the look of it, just to get him back in gear again.
I think they've led a charge.
I knew he was getting on, but I didn't know he had a plug-in pacemaker.
I tell you what, if they fire that thing up on the pacemaker, it'll blow him through the roof. But Kev's been around, wants that track record back, as Gary has already mentioned. And we also look forward to seeing Kevin Bartlett back in Group A in the Starion, of course, for the Endurance Championship Series.
Well, up until the last meeting here at Amaru, Kevin Bartlett was the fastest ever man around Amaru Park in the old Lola Formula 5000 car, but he was surpassed at the last meeting by John Bowe in the Formula Mondiale. So we await with interest for round 4 of this series. Meantime, we'll take a break and be back after this.
Frank comes up and he said, "That's the best, bravest drive I have ever seen in my life."
Oh, you would have meant it.
I know.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it nearly took me to tears because I thought, oh shit, I've done something. And he should have. You probably gathered it that I'm brutally honest and terribly sincere about anything that I say. Now, if I dislike someone, I don't even bother talking to them. I don't invite arguments or disagreements. I tend not to be involved with a person I have no respect for. The first car I raced was someone else's, was an Austin Healey Sprite. And that was where the poison got in the veins, and that was the end of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And how'd you get
Oran
around?
Park, the inaugural meeting at Oran Park.
The inaugural?
2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th on the one day, and I lost first place to Les Howard. Was it Les? Or Les? One of the Howard boys anyway. By big mistake on my behalf, of course, and because I was counting the prize money. as my mentor at the time, Billy Jemison, used to say to me, don't start counting the bloody prize money before you go across the finish line. And of course, if you made a mistake on the last lap, you dickhead, you could have been counting the prize money. And that's why you lost concentration. But first race was in an Austin Healy Sprite with a Simca motor in it. And today you think, oh, you're back off here, but then there was, you were blinking. That's all part of it. You accept that. There's no good thinking about that because you can't change that. So work with what you've got. And that's what you did. And I look back over those, some of the old, people keep dragging photos in here all the time. Some of them from the early 60s at Bathurst. Good God, we raced on that.
You're the king of the mini, weren't you?
Minis were just so much fun. You could do so much in a mini out of the ordinary and get away with it. I used to put myself into situations where I think, oh shit, you've overstepped. And back on the throttle and it's all worked.
They did overstep and looked like it was all over, and they all fell back together again somehow. Yeah, they're the opposite. They're used to anything.
All of a sudden we're finding that huge mistake that you made, and when you forced yourself back on the throttle, gee, that worked, that was fast. We'll do that next lap. And I remember a race at Pukekohe in New Zealand. It was pouring down rain, and the Mini just didn't want to turn. There was a very hooky turn past the grandstands. I thought to myself, how can I get its snout pointing that way? With a handbrake. That worked. So every lap after that I was entering 3/4 sideways because it was so manageable. Didn't have to be very clever. And I found that getting it hooked up sideways like a speedway car was very quick. So by mistake initially, because I got in that deep at one lap, I thought, so how do I get out of this? And I pulled the handbrake on. It was with his hand actually. And that worked. So there were those extremities of terror that paid off, and some of them didn't, of course. Some of them you end up picking grass seeds out of your hair, but 9 times out of 10 you found that, oh, that worked, and we incorporate that into the technique.
Fantastic Sergey that JB Crowley ran last weekend, doing some pretty good work. Down at turn 11 they come down, I lost count of how many cars there was, I think it was about
10 laps. Well, I don't think there's any point in really asking the questions if you're playing for uncertain. But we're looking forward to seeing JR and their team. Dangerous work with snow between rivers, we're a full
anyone's car on the day, and within 3 laps, if I couldn't go quicker, then I would walk away from motorsport. And I made that statement a few times, and I didn't walk away from it.